30 minutes from downtown Washington is rural Beltsville, Maryland. This is the low-profile, high-security training center of the United States Secret Service.
The Beltsville facility is a well-kept secret. The training is virtually everything.
Yeah! Good job.
This camaraderie, this closeness, I think, translates into the ability to know what each other is doing and to react quickly.
We were given unprecedented access behind these closed doors. In a typical 6-month training session, recruits will spend half of their time in classrooms, learning fundamental investigative techniques. Additionally, they will shoot thousands of rounds, master high-speed driving techniques, learn to combat terrorism, and become skilled in emergency medicine. As for the physical demands, it's boot camp with better pay. Every applicant must have a college degree, starting salary $25,000 a year. It takes at least 7 years before an agent can be considered for the Presidential Protective Detail. Once there, agents can make up to $90,000 a year with overtime. 10% of the agents are women.
When you come in as a woman, guys have a different expectation of you, thinking that you might not be able to do it. As a woman, I came in here and I said, I'm just as good as they are. I can do everything they can do, and you just got to do it. You got to show it. You got to earn respect.
Every year, an average of 5,000 people apply to the Secret Service. After a rigorous background check, face-to-face interview, and oral and written tests, less than 2% are selected to enter the training program.
Nice, smooth trigger pull.
Every agent is required to carry a weapon. Standard issue, a 9mm Sig Sauer P228 handgun.
Okay, you want to look here?
Bullseye. Agents on protective detail are issued MP5 submachine guns. And the agency's elite counter sniper units use what they call a JAR, just another rifle. It's custom built to fit each shooter, and marksmen must hit a bullseye from 1,000 yards.
Our counter sniper unit first learns to become snipers. He needs to know exactly what the sniper's going to think and how he's going to set up. So we train our people so that they'll know the best places to go, the best vantage points.
Like other law enforcement agencies, the Secret Service teaches high-speed pursuit techniques, but they take the training one step further.
What makes protective operations different is that if we ever get ourselves into a situation where we have to get out, a terrorist attack or something like that, we might have somebody chasing us, so we become the hunted then. So that's what this particular driving course is meant to do.
To quickly exit a dangerous situation, agents are taught a maneuver called a J-turn. The training begins on light, fast, maneuverable sports cars.
Let's do it. Spin the wheel. Go, go, go. That was a great turn. What happened was...
Great turn, but it stalled out.
Off the gas. Off we go.
Doing a J-turn in a lightweight Camaro is one thing. Doing the same maneuver in an armor-plated tank is another. Presidential limousines are never sold. When they are retired from active duty, they come here to the training center, where they're literally run into the ground.
You and your husband came here to the training center recently and went through some of the scenarios that they go through to be trained. A little eye-opener?
Well, it was, because I'm well aware of how hard they train and the way they try to plan for any contingency. But seeing firsthand some of what they go through, trying out a few of the techniques that they have to do was an eye-opener and just enhanced my respect for their ability and for how well prepared they are.
Secret Service agents are trained unlike any other law enforcement agency in the world. When the unthinkable occurs, the agents are trained to cover and evacuate. To learn to react instinctively to every conceivable situation, they are put through a series of real-life training scenarios called AOPs, Attack on a Principle. On the grounds of the training facility, the Secret Service has constructed 2 mock towns set up exclusively for AOPs. The replicated city streets can accommodate any possible scenario. For the first time, the Secret Service has allowed a journalist to participate in an AOP. They let us videotape 2 different exercises. The first one involved a very familiar situation. It is called working the rope line, something the president does all the time. In this scenario, I would be the one shaking hands with the crowd.
Hi, ma'am. Nice to meet you.
We go over 100 different scenarios. We put our agents through training where nothing happens at all. That's part of the training. We want them to realize that you get into a lot of situations. You may be geared up and you may be ready for a confrontation, but nothing happens.
What these agents don't know is that somewhere in the crowd is a man with a gun. At the first sign of a weapon, agents are trained to sound off as loud as they can.
Hi, nice to meet you.
I was immediately covered by a wall of human bodies, thrown into the limousine and evacuated. Simultaneously, 3 other things were happening. One of the agents simulated taking a bullet. 2 other agents immediately started emergency medical care. 3 more agents disarmed and subdued the gunman. I saw nothing.
You all right?
Yeah, I'm okay.
Sorry.
That's okay, that's okay.
That was real.
The AOPs can be very graphic. We'd like them to experience that inside the confines of a controlled environment here before they would actually see something like that on the streets. Hopefully they never see that out in the street, but we want to be prepared for the worst.
Your eyes are going everywhere. You have to just trust yourself, trust your instincts, and then just relax. Your gut feeling comes into this a lot. When you see everybody's clapping, you see a guy back there that's not clapping and not excited, you know, that should send off a little light bulb that something's wrong over there and you might need to check it out.
I noticed someone in the back had directed his attention down to his waistband. He dropped his head and I saw his arm come up.
So that's what you were saying that you saw you didn't like?
There was something unusual that took place, and once his arm dropped, the gun came out. And he turned to spin, and at that time we started moving toward him, and Mike at that time turned to take you back to the
But you
car.
got the bad guy, right?
We got him.
Okay.
We are going to respond and go into action to cover and evacuate. And in the process, if somebody gets hurt, then that's part of the job.
Would you take a bullet?
We're going to do what we need to do, and that's one of the consequences.
Is that a yes?
That's a yes.
The second AOP was based on a series of actual world events. To simulate the attack, special effects were used. It started with a truck bomb. Then part 2 of the attack, a terrorist bomber. And a rocket attack. My detail immediately started evasive maneuvers as the street erupted in flames. From somewhere in the motorcade, the counter-assault team was deployed. We can't tell you how, but it was fast. During the exercise, the noise was deafening.
These explosions give us the feel, the blast, the heat. We want to train the way it'll be if an event actually goes down.
Graduation day. We were in attendance as 25 students took the Secret Service oath of office in front of friends, family, and one they protect.
Country's interests. And I wish you all Godspeed.
Is there one day that you can think of, though, where you were just so proud?
Yes, there was a recent day. That was on election eve of 1996, when President Clinton had won the election, and he was addressing about 50,000 people at Little Rock in front of millions of people all over the world and on TV. And he began his speech by thanking his family, thanking his senior staff, and then he said, "I thank especially my Secret Service detail
that has been so challenged by a president determined not to be isolated from the American people."
He thanked us for what we do every day, and it really meant a lot to us.
Can you remember back to when it was that you first said, that's what I'd like to do?
My first recollection of real interest in becoming a Secret Service agent was on November 22nd of 1963. I was in high school when President Kennedy was assassinated, and I still carry that with me to this day, and I'm sure many millions of Americans do. I'll never forget that, and we are going to train and practice to make sure nothing like that happens again.
The United States Secret Service behind closed doors.